I'm Loretta, and I'm so very honored to be able to bring Tobina here. I've known her since I was a little girl. I'd come home from school, and Mom would be at these big ladies' meetings, and I would come home, and she'd say, "Oh, Loretta, you missed out. Tobina spoke today," and she'd tell me everything that Tobina talked about, and I really felt like I'd missed out. So ever since I was little, I thought so very highly of Tobina. I've never been able to hear her. A couple years back, I was able to be there when she was speaking, and I had some young ones that I had to leave the room with, so I didn't get to hear her then, and what I did hear was amazing. So I just want to announce now, if anybody's got young children like me, you'll probably see me back in the cry room, so if you need to go to the cry room, there's a speaker in there. And I want to thank Judah Rivera and Ray for letting us use their church. This is a wonderful building. I wanted to arrange to have Tobina speak to the homeschool group for years, and I just kind of chickened out and never did it. And I finally said a couple months back, I said, "Mom, will you ask Tobina if she would like to do this?" And I said, "God, if she says yes, I have to do it. But if she says no, I'm not going to do it." And she said yes, and I was thinking maybe I'd have 40 or 50 people here. And this is so cool because we have 47 families that RSVP'd for a total of 190 people, which is amazing because Tobina told me that this happened so long ago and she's not asked to speak so very often, and she thought maybe people weren't interested anymore. And I want to say, Tobina, you can see everybody's interested and they want to hear what happened to you. So I just want to introduce Mrs. Tobina Dalton right now, and I'm very honored to have her here.
Thank you, Loretta. That was a lovely welcome. I'm really a little overwhelmed that you all came this beautiful afternoon, 71 degrees. You all should be outside. But once, and I loved that piano piece. Where is she? I want to thank her especially. Thank you, that was lovely. My husband is a pianist, and I tell him that the welcome was with the piano. Great. Before I explain all the props here on this table, if you have difficulty understanding me, I was born across the ocean, so I have an accent. Just raise your hand and say, speak a little louder or more distinctly. We'll try. Before I explain, you know, I'm a preacher, once a preacher, every time a preacher. And I want to remind you that we are still in the season of Lent. And we are all on the way with Jesus to Jerusalem. Now, just imagine that we have arrived in Jerusalem, in that little street where Luke, you know, the gospel writer Luke, gave his room to Jesus to have that last meal with his disciples. And let's just imagine that we join the disciples around that table and that we listen to what he said. And that was his last will and testament. And then we discover that we are the beneficiaries. And for your homework, you thought you didn't get homework. For your homework for Easter, I want you to read again John 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, because that is called Jesus' high priestly prayer. And in these chapters, John interprets what Jesus said to his disciples. And he gave his greatest commandment, you shall love one another as I have loved you. And that mandate for Monday, Thursday, that gave us new meaning during the war. And also, I want to read to you a few verses from a psalm that became very, very important to us during the war. That is Psalm 46. Our great God is still our refuge and strength. He knows our problems and fears, so we have no business doubting him, even though the earth is convulsed in tragedy and the human masses are threatened by nuclear annihilation. God continues to reign as all-wise and as almighty as ever. His eternal plan is not cancelled out by the whims of human leaders or the freakish accidents of nature. Nations will destroy each other. Civilizations will perish. The earth itself may one day become a smoking cinder. But God will not leave us. He is forever our sure refuge and strength. And that became for us the main strength during the war. Now I'll quickly explain a little bit the things here on the altar. Of course, the tulips. I have no windmills. You have to imagine that. The wooden shoes, and I hope you still use wooden shoes in the backyard when it rains. It's wonderful. We always put our feet in it and then with our socks came into the house. This is a pewter Dutch tea set. Here I am with my two older brothers in an authentic Dutch costume. I don't have a Dutch costume anymore, otherwise I would have worn it. But this is taken in the province of Zeeland. And it is the Zeeland costume. Of this picture, I'm very proud. These are my four forefathers. They were all Dutch Reformed ministers. The baby here is my father. This is my grandfather. This is my great-grandfather. And this is my great-great-grandfather. All Dutch Reformed ministers. And so it gives me the strength to take it with me here to your church. My friends, there are so many things I can tell you. And I will stick a little bit to my notes that I don't forget something. See, because the Netherlands, you can see the speck there, that little speck. I'm so glad you had a map, that's great. You can also see the trouble we were in when Germany decided that they wanted to overrun Holland, then Belgium, then France, and then attack England. That was their plan. But we were so gullible, and so, but we didn't know that for years Germany planned this, planned it very, very carefully, how they would overrun these two small little countries and then get to England. They wanted to get to England. See, the thing that happened, and I don't think it is very often written in books, the year before World War II, a lot of German girls, 17, 18, 19, 20-year-olds, came to Holland. And they said, this is cheap household help. They charged, I think, $1 an hour, a guilder an hour. And the only thing that we had to do, we had to take them in the house overnight. And my mother, at the time, we were 7 in our family, she thought, well, a German girl, that would be nice, because then they would learn to speak the German more fluently. And we took Elsa, was her name, we took her in, and she was with us for a year. But I noticed, as a little girl, I was once very little, as a little girl, Elsa, the German girl, asked me all the time, what do you call this in Dutch? What do you call that? How do you say this in Dutch? And then in the evening I said, Mom, I taught Elsa Dutch. Isn't that great? And then it happened. In our family, we always had a few verses of the Bible in the morning before we had breakfast. And Elsa always came for breakfast. And one morning, she didn't come. And my mother thought, is she sick? And she went upstairs to her room. And in the room, everything was gone. Her suitcase, her bed was empty. She took even a few things that belonged to us with her. She was gone, just gone. So we were really frightened. And we phoned 2 or 3 other families who also had a German girl. And they said, yeah, they're gone. And see, in the night, these girls were picked up, taken back to Germany to see their family. And these girls became the telephone operators during the war. They were familiar with the Dutch language. They knew exactly how to intercept telephone calls. Things we never realized that this would happen. And also another thing that happened before the war, that they wanted Dutch uniforms for theater plays. You know, plays, great. We all love to go to a play. And they said, yeah, we need some props for Dutch soldiers. And we all gave all these uniforms to the Germans. And of course, when the massed air attacks came, all the parachutists came down in the Dutch uniforms, and we didn't know one from the other. Now, the events in the Netherlands are not very well known, because we were liberated by the British. It was a British operation, not American. British and Canadians came to get us in May 1945. But we have so many things that we remember from that first time that they came to Holland, because the Dutch government and the Dutch resistance was nothing in 1940 and 39. We were not prepared for warfare. We had that childish opinion, oh, we can always press a button and put the whole country underwater. That would be not really a good result. But see, we had no defense. And we had beautiful roadways. Look at Norway. There are the mountains. It's much more difficult to have a warfare in Norway than it is in Holland. In Holland, you could just go everywhere, over the freeways. You could just go right straight from Holland into Belgium. So when we said to each other, we can't do anything anymore, we have no defense, we have to go underground. And that was the beginning of the Dutch resistance. My brothers were still too young yet. In 41 and 42, they were too young to be a member of the resistance, but there was a junior resistance. And so they joined. First, my 2 older brothers joined the resistance, and then later on I joined the resistance as well. The winter of 40 and 41 was terribly hard, was terribly cold. And in the beginning, it seemed as if everything was rather normal. But Germany had then taken over Holland. And you don't know yet what occupation is. They immediately changed all the names of the street. Terribly confusing. All the names became German names. We didn't know where we were. And universities immediately were closed. Universities are, of course, the voice of the people, and the people who are thinking, and they wanted to close the universities, and they were closed. We heard that Jewish professors had taken off to Switzerland, and we couldn't believe that they had left us, that was necessary. And so, again, I'm a little here and there, but listen carefully. In 1940, we were 9 million people on 33,000 square miles. And I told you the country is flat, excellent roads, good rail communications. So it was so easy for the Germans to get around. But the first Dutch underground was formed in 1940. And we had a certain way, a code system that we, Beethoven's Fifth, da-da-da-da-da, short, 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 boom. That was a code that we wrote on everything so that they knew where we had been. Then in 1942 and 43, we had in Holland quite a few Jewish people. We didn't call them Jewish. They were Dutch people. They just happened to have a synagogue and a Jewish religion. Just like you may be Baptist, and Presbyterian, and Methodist, but you are Americans. And so we had a wonderful Jewish congregation in Holland. They were beautiful diamond cutters, precision cutters. They were just excellent. And they were mostly situated in Amsterdam. They were also beautiful lace makers. The gown of the baptismal gown of our crown princess was made by a Jewish lace maker. So these people, we just loved them. They were skilled diamond cutters. They were professors of sciences, of arts, theater. Even the Supreme Justice of the Court of Supreme Justice was a Jew. And some were quite alive in politics. And then, of course, we have the rise of Nazism in Germany. And it went all so slowly and so insidiously. It was sometimes, I had a Jewish friend, and suddenly she told me, we have now complete registration. I said, what? Yeah, she said, we had to have a new identification card. And on it was printed a big J for Jood, for Jew. It was insidiously how the Germans did it. And that is one of the most difficult things, to forgive your enemy. See, not only complete registration, but the Jews were barred from all public places. I couldn't even take my girlfriend, my Jewish girlfriend, to the store anymore. Business places were registered and put under Nazi administration. Jewish real estate was immediately disposed of. Jewish professors were forbidden to be dentists or doctors or whatever they were. It just went one after the other after the other. But what really put us into action, my brothers and I, was this: when the Germans ordered that all had to wear the large yellow-orange David star with the word Jood, J-O-O-D is Dutch for Jew, in it. I remember helping my girlfriend cutting the cloth and sewing it on her dress. And of course, when you're 14, 15, 16, you dare everything. I said, I want to wear one too. I want to see what people say when they see me. And she said, you can't, it's too expensive, it's too dangerous. But I did. And the funny part is this: when you wear that David star, some people took their hats off because they knew there is lots of trouble for that person. But some people just absolutely put you off the sidewalk into the gutter. And that made us furious, that the Jews had to wear that David star. And so we organized. My two older brothers went into the group that took care of the false identity cards and the false food cards, because you couldn't exist if you didn't have a food card, and you couldn't exist if you didn't have some sort of identity card. I don't know how these kids did it, because even the watermark, you know, when you hold it up, was there in these identity cards. Beautifully done. I don't know what sort of machine they had. And then there was a group, they were good swimmers. They went in the night to the lakes. And then little amphibian planes came from England with messages that the couriers, they were also couriers, had to take to Switzerland so that we stayed in communication with one another. And in the third group, I worked for 2 or 3 years. That was to get the Jewish kids out of the big cities like Amsterdam, The Hague, Rotterdam, and so on. No, that wasn't as easy as it sounds. First of all, I went, you can't see it on the map, I went to the north of Holland, way north. That is the province of Friesland. Friesland has lots of farms and farm places. But I also had an uncle who was a minister there. Oh, it's great to have people in the ministry. And I went straight to him and I said, who are the families you can trust with a Jewish child? And he had a whole list of them. But we never wrote anything down. Everything had to be in your head. It's too dangerous when you're picked up and you have addresses. So I went to Friesland. Then I went home again and I went to the addresses where people were willing to give their child to take it into hiding. That is one of the most difficult visits I had to make. the parents, of course, like any parent, want to stay in touch with them, wanted to know where they were going. I said, I can't tell you, I can't. I am the only link. I can't give you any address. And then some didn't want to. I had to go away again. But some knew that the situation in Holland had become so bad that they wanted their kids to come out of this alive. And then I usually, I have helped in clinics. I have never been a nurse, but I had the outfit. And when you are a nurse, you had a reason for existence in the eyes of the Germans. So I bandaged one side of their face or one arm, so it looked as if a nurse was taking a sick child to a hospital. And then I took the child into the train or whatever. Once I had my bicycle. But see, bicycles, they were at a premium. The tires were taken from them, but I still had my tires because I was a nurse. So I had a reason for existence. But most Dutch people had their bicycles without tires. Have you ever ridden a bicycle? It is a lot of noise, and it is tricky too. But at any rate, then I went back to Friesland again with that child, and I always chose a farm family with 5 or 6 or 7 children. You know, an 8 who is counting. And so, if ever there should be a statue, I wanted for the farmer's wife of Friesland, who took these kids in wonderfully, took care of them. But the only problem was, after the war, when we picked all these kids up again, that some had gone to their churches and baptized some of these Jewish kids in the Dutch Reformed way or the Roman Catholic way. But God must have laughed about all this. They were safe, and they had a wonderful time. I want, because otherwise I'm too long for you, I want to tell you about a Christmas Eve that I spent in a stable, really. That was in '44. I had arranged that all the Jewish kids in Friesland, there in the north, would come together for a feast of light, that we had some sort of a celebration. And I picked a farm that had lots of, possibilities of hiding if there was danger. Because a Dutch farm place, you go from where they live to the stable, to another, it's all connected. Because you couldn't have livestock outside your premises because they have been taken by the Germans. So, then I arranged for food cards, that we got some cookies together, that we got some chocolate milk together, and the farmer's wife and the farmer, I had a special visit with them. I said, now, in case of danger, what can you do with all the cups, the extra cups that there are here? Oh, she said, and she opened, on the floor, sort of a, I don't know how to explain it. You could open the floor here, and you could put all the cups and saucers immediately underneath it. And I also saw the place of hiding in the back. And I thought, this will be a good place to have that special Christmas Eve. She had a tree, she had chocolate milk, she had cookies, And I gathered up about eight of them, 8 Jewish kids that were hidden in different farm places. And they were so delighted to see each other again. So we came together that night, and just when we had a good time, we hear over the icy grounds, you know, you hear trucks coming. And the farmer looked at me, and the farmer's wife looked at me, and she said, well, you better be careful, you better go. And I gathered up these 8 kids, and we went to the back of the farm place, to the stable. In the stable, I still remember, there was a goat, there were chickens, and yeah, there was 1 cow left. And the Jewish kids, you know, they were delighted to be in that straw, in that hay. But the chickens, of course, tuk, 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 terrible noise. But I took them with me, and then we just hoped for the best. After a while, the farmer's wife came to see me, and she said, it is all over. They were just 2 German soldiers who were homesick. They saw the tree, they saw the lights, and I even gave them a cookie and some chocolate milk. And then they took off again. So she told me this, and I said, kids, we can go back in again. But they didn't want to. They didn't want to. They loved the tear, all the straw, and with the chickens, and with the goat. And so all we did was, we sang Away in a Manger, No Crib for a Bed. And it was just one of these wonderful moments that I'll never forget in my life. But listen, this is enough drivel. If you have questions, because I'm just picking here and there what comes in my mind, ask me. Just ask me anything. Just whatever. Don't ever look upon me that I was a hero taking these kids. You would have done exactly the same. If you people, you people were taken just because you were Methodist or you were Baptist, well, you would say no. Yes.
Were you able to reunite many of the children?
Yes, yes, we did.
Okay.
But the hard part, the good question, the hard part for us is we couldn't hide the parents. The parents were gone. And we had, for instance, Anne Frank, The Hiding Place, Corrie ten Boom, that book, Diary of a Young Girl. I saw Anne Frank. We wanted to take her to the north. But Anne Frank wanted to stay in Amsterdam. And they did some hiding, because in Amsterdam, the houses go way up, and you can go on the top, in the attic, you go from one place to another. Therefore, she wasn't caught right away. But finally, she was caught. There are always traitors. But see, the parents didn't come back. And that was for us the greatest problem in 45. Here were all these kids. And so we made a special request to the Jewish people in Switzerland who had escaped. And they came back. In the beginning, we made some sort of we had even in Holland a concentration camp. And we dolled it up with tulips and paint and everything. And we put these kids there for the moment. And made it for the Swiss Jewish people to come to take them. But so many didn't. And that is the saddest part. Whatever you want to ask.
What happened with the children who didn't have a family to come pick them up? Did they?
We asked the Dutch people to adopt them in their family. And here also were difficulties. When the war was over, they thought, will we get again problems like we had during the war. Is it safe to take a Jewish child? And see, these are heartbreaking things. We had an awful time, 45, 46, 47, to place these kids. Yeah,
Do you still go home today?
say that again.
Do you still go home this day?
Yes, I have been. I have 5 kids and I took them all home. They had to see where I grew up. And I have even taught them a little bit of the Dutch language, but not enough. You want me to teach you Dutch?
Can I ask, was there adults or were there people organizing the youth, or was it pretty much everyone did what their hand, found something to do?
Say that question again. Who organized what?
Were there people who were helping you and your brothers figure out?
Yes,
what to do?
yes.
Okay.
Oh yes, yes. We had lots of helpers because I needed especially helpers to scout around in the north of Holland for places for them to go that were safe. And we always picked the farmers with 4 or 5 kids. So that it wasn't suddenly that they had more children. Yeah.
Whatever happened with your Jewish friend who you helped put the Star of David on her shirt?
She died. Yeah, she died. So many of them died. And therefore, read again Jesus' high priestly prayer. He teaches us what we do with our enemies. And that we, his greatest commandment, that you should love one another as I have loved you. But don't ever look at people, because they are different. We sometimes make the same mistake here in America. And reach out to the ones that speak a different language and have difficulty with the English. Help them to get adjusted to the way of living here. I don't know what, I left here, if you want to look at it, there are 2 Dutch magazines. These are up-to-date Dutch magazines. And I leave them with you.
Tobina, here's some more questions. And I had a question.
Yeah.
How old were you when you went into Freeform?
How old? I never look at my age. I was young. I was young and foolish. And you are daring when you're young. And therefore don't ever look upon it that we were heroes. We aren't. You would have done exactly the same. Exactly. You would have defended your kids.
Tobina, right here. Were your parents aware of Germany before they invaded your country? Were they did they
Yeah,
come and
yeah,
discuss
they caught on. After the event with that German girl, Elsa, that we had in the house, and didn't come home, and didn't come down then for breakfast. Then we thought, we are too gullible. There's a lot more going on that we don't know.
Do you find that our country, the way that the countries that do not like us, like Iran, do you find us in the same predicament with the
Yeah.
things that are going on? Do you see the church in the
See,
same position?
I would address it so differently. I would want to go to Iran and get to know the people, live with them, just live with them, and say, we are the same human beings, only we have a different culture. And it is so sad that now in Afghanistan, we do not understand the women, that they go through a terrible, terrible time in Afghanistan. It is this personal contact we've got to have with people. We are just all human beings together, only born in different corners of the world. that we are all the same.
Did you,
Yeah.
did you have a specific home or did you move around?
Say it loud. Say- Oh,
Did you
here.
have a specific home or did you move around a lot?
Who? What?
Did you have a specific home or did you move around a lot?
Did I have what? A specific what?
A home.
Did you have one home or did you, did you
Oh.
move around a lot?
Well, of course, I had my own home, and I had the specific homes that I visited to get the kids out. And I forgot to tell you, I once had 2 of them with me. They were bandaged, and their face was sort of bandaged. And a German soldier came in the same train, and he saw that I had 2 suitcases, and he helped me, you know, and I had to say, vielen Dank, vielen Dank. You know, I said it all in German, and nothing happened. But I was terribly afraid, but the soldier, of course, thought, there is a nurse taking kids to the hospital. But I have never had problems. It's probably when you're young, and you are all young, and you're all daring, you do things that perhaps later on you wouldn't do. You know, when you really know what you're doing. Yes?
What was your most like frightening experience?
How about?
Like, what was your most like frightening experience that it was really close?
I think the frightening one was when I was in that farm place with these all 8 kids. You know, they could all have been taken. And I heard these trucks coming closer. And I thought, oh no. And all it was, they had lost the road to Amsterdam. They had come in Friesland from Germany, and they had to be at a certain time in Amsterdam. They had to be there. So they were in a hurry. But oh, was I ever afraid, because all these 8 kids, they were so happy with their chocolate milk and their cookies, and then this. But at that. Yeah.
What was the age range of the kids that you helped?
Oh, mostly 6, 7, and 8. 6, 7, and 8. And then, see, the older kids had to go with the adults to find houses. And the older they get, the more difficult it was to find places. Kids are easy to place, especially in these farm places. Yeah.
How about the really young ones?
No, not the real little ones. Although, yeah, there was one, she was 2, but the mother didn't want to give her to me. It's awful, you know, there's this woman, you don't know her, she will take you somewhere. You wouldn't do it either. And the 2-year-old I never got. I did come back again. Yeah. But see, these memories, although it is so long ago, I never forget. Never. And just reach out to one another. Help one another. That's all I want you to do in life. I'm so happy that I have been here. Yes, do you have?
What year did England free the Netherlands?
Do what?
What year did England liberate the Netherlands?
I still don't hear the question. Do you hear?
When did England liberate?
Holland was liberated the 10th of May, 4:15 in the morning, 1945. Yeah, we all came out into the street. And, you know, we just had that terrible hunger winter before the May. You know, the Germans took everything. Potatoes, whatever there was, nothing was left. And then we ate our tulip bulbs. So I have all the colors in my stomach. But what my mother did was this. she cut the tulip bulbs up in little pieces and put them in the coffee grinder, you know, these old-fashioned coffee grinders. And she made some sort of a porridge out of it. And it kept us alive. The only thing we were not allowed to eat were the hyacinth bulbs. They were poisonous. But all the tulip bulbs that we had, boy, we ate them. Yeah.
I want to thank you for doing that. You certainly was the angel at that time to save all those children. I had family in Holland.
Do you?
I did. And
Do you still speak it?
Jewish family.
Oh, really?
Yes, and most of them were already out of there into another island. But they came, most of them came from 1492, the Spanish Inquisition. Spanish Inquisition, most of them went into
Did they get through the war?
There's a few that died.
Yeah.
But most of them were already out of there into an island right north of Venezuela. Yes. But the
Are you still in touch with them?
some of they're very distant because we have information all the way as
Yeah.
far as 1650. But there was family still in
Yeah.
Holland. there.
That's interesting.
So, thank you so much for doing
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yes, sure.
What was the name of your street you lived on?
The street where I lived on, in Holland, Leidse Straatweg. Does that help you? Leidse Straatweg. Yeah, it is just, you know, it is just another language, really. The same street you have here, the same type of names. I lived in the city of Leiden. Leiden has a very famous university. The university was built in the 1500s. And I'm proud of my great-great-grandfather. He taught theology in that university. But this grandfather, let me just tell you also about him here. He was a minister in The Hague, Dutch Reformed minister in The Hague. He had in his congregation King Willem II. King. There's a king in your congregation. But once, my great-great-grandfather refused Holy Communion to King Willem II because he had left his wife and was carousing with other women. And you don't do that to a king. And we were really thinking that he would be defrocked, you know, taken out of the ministry. But it never happened. Never happened. And the friendship between my great-great-grandfather and Queen Sophie was wonderful. She came to thank him when my grandfather was very, very sick. And I still remember, it is written up in a letter, that my great-great-grandmother thought, but the Queen is coming to my house. What do I do? Put the red carpet on? And all she wanted to see my great-great-grandfather, to say goodbye and to say thank you. Yeah, it's really wonderful, the memories I have of these four people. Well, I think you're a wonderful audience. You have been so patient. I wish we could sing a hymn. Do you have in your hymn book, there is a balm in Gilead? Do you have that? No, that isn't. That's only in a Methodist. Can we sing a hymn? What hymn would you like to sing? Just to close it. Because you people are such good singers, I listen.
Well, praise him.
Yeah.
I think that's 68. 68. let's stand and we'll sing 2 stanzas of this to close. Number 68, praise him, praise him. Praise him, Jesus our blessed Redeemer. Sing, O earth, his wonderful love proclaim. Hail him, highest archangels in glory. Strength and honor, praise his holy name. Like a shepherd, Jesus will guard his children. In his arms he carries them all day long. Praise him, tell of his excellent greatness. Praise him, ever in joyful song. Last verse. Praise him, Jesus our blessed Redeemer. Heavenly portals, loud of hosannas ring. Jesus, Savior, reigning forever and ever. Crown him, prophet and priest and king. Christ is coming, over the world victorious. Power and glory unto the Lord belong. Praise him, tell of his excellent greatness. Praise him, ever in joyful song. Now, Lysa, did you need to say anything before they're dismissed, or?